Resume recording, and I'm recording, and I want to use the camera. Okay. All right. So the last thing, if you remember, the last thing we discussed 2 days ago was when Diwana starts going through some changes. Her consciousness changes. She doesn't like anything. It takes her only 2 weeks after arriving in France. It takes her 2 weeks to change, and her consciousness, it changes. And then the family starts torturing her, especially the children. And today we will see she will have another experience, because she wants to leave the villa. She wants to see France, and so far she hasn't been able to leave the villa. She only can see from the window. She can see the surrounding villas. So let's look together at the screen. The monsieur tells her, tomorrow we will go to Cannes. The madam tells her, Cannes is a very famous city in France. So they're going to take her to Cannes. To show her Cannes, the city, no. Tomorrow we'll go to Cannes. My parents have never tasted African food. You will do us African honor with your cooking. So they are taking her in order to serve them, and not only them, she ends up serving their families. So they're taking her in order to cook food for their parents, or for the madam's parents. She was nearly bare and getting bronzed from the sun, which means she's enjoying herself, the madam. She's getting bronzed, which means she's enjoying herself, while Diwana is dying, serving the family. Madam, I have ordered some rice and 2 chickens. You will be careful not to spice it too much. Of course, Africans like spicy food, unlike Europeans. So you have to be careful, because that's the taste of our European families, not your taste as an African woman. Madam, okay. Answering this way, she felt her heart harden. She's not as happy as before. When they ask her to serve them, she doesn't feel happy. So she felt her heart harden. It seemed the 100th time that she had been trailed from villa to villa. It seemed. So that was not the case. It just seemed that she was taken from villa to serve other families. To this one's house, and then to that one's. It was at the Commodores. You remember the Commodore at the beginning of the story? The one who discovered her body when she committed suicide. So it was at the Commodores, everyone called him the Commodore, that she had rebelled the first time. Rebellion, to rebel, to revolt, to oppose, to show that you are against something. We Palestinians, all the time we rebel against Israeli occupation and colonization. You see what I'm saying? So now it was at the Commodore. So that's not a coincidence. The Commodore is a colonial officer. He represents French colonialism. Don't forget this. Okay? Everything I tell you is important. You need to take notes if you can't remember, or you can watch the video again. So the Commodore representing French colonialism. Diwana representing Senegal, Africa, the colonized world. And this is the first time she rebels. Rebellion, which means her consciousness changes, and then she takes action. Theory, practice. Theory, practice. Consciousness, revolution. Consciousness, revolution. At the beginning, before arriving in France, she had false consciousness. Now she's rebelling against it, against false consciousness and against colonialism. So that she had rebelled the first time. Some silly people who followed her about hanging on her heels in the kitchen had been there for dinner. So at the Commodore's house, when she was taken, some French people, because she looks different. She's black. She's an African. So some people followed her to the kitchen just to watch her, to look at her. Their presence was an oppressive shadow. She felt their heaviness, shadow. They were like oppressing her, like colonialism. Their presence was an oppressive shadow on her slightest movement. She couldn't move. Whenever she wanted to do something, they were just looking at her, even in the kitchen itself. She had the feeling of not knowing how to do anything. She had the feeling of not knowing what to do or how to do anything. Okay, look at how she describes them. Look at how she describes them. These strange, so she describes them as strange people. She's in France, and for her, they are strange, of course. Self-centered, they only see themselves. Selfish, narcissistic, you know, narcissism, self-centered. They are the only important people for themselves. Strange, self-centered, sophisticated beings never stopped asking her idiotic questions, stupid questions about how African women do their cooking. You know, very stupid questions. She kept herself under control. You know, when somebody asks you very stupid questions, and especially racist questions, you try to control yourself. The three women, so there were three women who followed her in the kitchen. The three women were still chirping when she waited on them at the table. So they were still talking when she was serving them food. Testing the first spoonful on the tip, or rather testing on the tip of their tongues. They wanted to try her food, to test it before they start eating it. Then gluttonously devouring the rest. So they tested it, and then they started eating very quickly. So that was one of her first experiences when she started rebelling, hating this kind of life as a servant, of course, like a slave, being used, or rather being exploited. This time at my parents, you must do out yourself. You must be excellent. You must do your best. Oui, madam. You know, oui, madam. It's like, yes, sir. As a servant or a slave, you say, yes, sir, oui, madam. Restored rather to her kitchen, she thought of madam's former kindness. Former kindness in Senegal. When the madam was in Senegal, she was very kind. But was she that kind? Or is Divana's consciousness changing? But definitely the madam in Senegal is not behaving the same way as being in France. So she detested it. Madam had been good to her, but here is the point, had been good in Senegal, but in a self-seeking way, selfish, because she wanted, you know, to be served by what's her name, Diwana. The only reason for her attentiveness, notice Diwana is becoming conscious. The only reason for Madam's attentiveness had been to wind the strings around Diwana. It's like a trap to attract Diwana, persuade Diwana to come with her to France. The better to make her sweat. She loathed everything. Who's she? Diwana. Hated everything. Pay attention to pronouns. Pay attention to pronouns. She loathed everything. She hated everything. Back in Dakar, Dakar is the capital city of Senegal. Diwana used to gather Monsieur and Madame's leftovers. Whenever they ate and they finished, they had leftovers. So they would gather, Diwana would take the leftovers to take home to Rui Escarafe, to her home, to her family. She had taken pride then in working for important white people. So when people asked her in Senegal, who are you working for? She would say, I'm working for important white people. Now she was so alone. Now, where now? In France. She was so alone. Their meals made her sick to her stomach. She hated the food in France. The resentment, hatred, dissatisfaction. She hated everything. She disliked everything. The resentment spoiled her relations with her employers, the madam and the monsieur, the employers. She started having a bad relationship with them. She stood her ground. She wanted to defend herself. You see, she's changing. They stood theirs. She insisted on what she wanted. They insisted on what they wanted. Of course, there has to be a clash. There has to be a clash. Ultimately, as we discussed it last time, ultimately leading to her decision to take her own life. Okay? They no longer exchanged any remarks. They stopped talking, but those of a business nature. In Senegal, they would ask her about her family, etc. Now, just business. Do this, do that. Wash the dishes, cook, take care of the children. That's it. Oui, madame, and that's it. Unlike the kind of exchanges they had or they used to have in Senegal. Diwana, will you do the washing today? Oui, madam. Last time you didn't do a good job on my slips. The iron was too hot and the collars of monsieur's shirts were scorched. Do pay attention to what you are doing, will you? You notice? It's like giving orders. Do this, do that. You didn't do well last time. Oui, madam. Are you following? Oh, I forgot. There are some buttons missing on monsieur's shirts and his shorts. So, sue them. Every little job was Diwana's. So she was expected to do everything. Every little job was Diwana's. And then Madam started speaking to her in pidgin French. Pidgin, you know the word pidgin? Try to find, to look it out in the dictionary, try to find out what it is. But I can tell you it's like broken English. Like when we speak French, sorry, not English. It's like pidgin English. Pidgin English broken. Me go, me come, mama come, I are go. You see, that's, you know, like broken English, pidgin English, pidgin French, which is belittling, humiliating, because she understands French, but maybe she cannot speak fluently. So the madam started speaking to her in pidgin French, even in front of guests, which is embarrassing. Embarrassing and pay attention, racist. racist. Okay? In the end, no one in the house ever spoke to the maid anymore, except in terms of Missy. Senegalese pidgin talk. So they used even Senegalese language. Instead of calling her by her name, they would call her Missy. Okay, which is humiliating for her. She's not white. Don't forget that. She's not one of them. She's poor, and she's a woman. Bewildered by her inadequacies in French, because she didn't speak very, very good French. She knew French, of course, but she didn't very, very. So that bewildered her, confused her. Diwana, okay, this is important. Because of this and because of the way they treated her, Diwana closed herself into a sort of solitary confinement, complete isolation. When Israelis want to torture our prisoners, they put them in solitary confinement, as al-infiradi sort of, you understand? So she herself imposed solitary confinement on herself. You know what I'm saying? After long, lonely moments, of meditation, thinking, reflections, meditation, when you sit and think deeply, you meditate, you reflect. So after long, lonely moments of meditation, she came to the conclusion, first of all, that she was nothing but, okay, extremely important. We are reaching conclusions, ya sabaya, ya shabab. She became conscious that she's nothing but a useful object. Underline that. So there is a difference between somebody who doesn't know that she's an object and between somebody who's conscious of the fact that she's being used as an object. I am an individual, I am a human being. I no longer want to be used as an object. I am not a thing, a thing. You use me for your satisfaction only. Cook, and that's it. Clean, that's it. So she has become conscious that she's being used as a useful object, and furthermore, that she was being put on exhibit, like a trophy, like a souvenir, like an object for people to come and watch, come and see our black girl. You see, this is a fascinating conclusion because she's becoming conscious. Unlike Diwana in Senegal. She was so happy. You remember Tif Korea? That's what he told her. You remember? He said that, and she didn't believe him. And now she's becoming conscious that she's an object, objectified, thingified, which also means dehumanized, dehumanization, not a human being, not an independent individual. And she's only a trophy, a souvenir. You remember at the beginning when we were told about African masks, etc. That's it. She's just an object used for the white man's satisfaction. White man and white woman in this story, of course. Am I clear? Okay. At parties, look at this. It's like, you know, it's like going to a zoo. You know, in the 19th century, they took a Zulu woman to Europe. Zulu tribes, Qaba'il Zulu from South Africa. and they put her on a show like an animal in a cage for Europeans to come and watch, like a monkey. Yeah, I'm serious. That, in fact, it happened. It did happen. So look at this now here. They take her to show our African girl, the object we have brought back from Africa. At parties, when Monsieur or Madame made remarks about native psychology, as if they know what native psychology, of course, in Senegal is. They are like this. Native psychology, that is a representation of stereotypes. You know the word stereotypes, of course. I talked about it previously. Stereotype, okay? Diwana. So when they talked about native psychology, you know, they, blacks, Africans, they believe in this. They are dirty. They smell, I don't know, they're ignorant. They're backward. The example is Diwana. That's our native. So we know what they are like. We know what natives are like. Very, very racist. Very racist. The neighbors would say, it's the Pushé's black girl, not Diwana. The neighbors would say, we saw the Pushé. The Pushé is the name of the family, of course. The Pushé's black girl. She wasn't the African girl in her own right, no, but theirs. So she was identified in relation to the Pushés. She didn't have her own identity. No identity here, no personality, no individuality. She's just an object that is owned by the French family, the Pushés. And that hurt. Of course it hurts. Put yourself into her shoes and think about it. And that hurt. Of course it does hurt. The fourth month began. Notice, remember, 2 months, the third one, she started changing. Now, so finished 3 months and the fourth month began. Things got worse. Her thoughts grew more lucid every day. She had work and work to spare. Work and work to spare every single day, all week long. So she doesn't have a weekend. Where would she go if she had a weekend? Where would she go? When she doesn't know anybody. Sunday was Mademoiselle's, notice Sunday is a weekend, right? Sunday was Mademoiselle's favorite day for asking friends over. So the madam, the Mademoiselle, sorry, that's the madam's sister, would ask friends to come and visit. And who would serve them on Sundays? There were lots of them, lots of visitors, Mademoiselle's friends. The weeks began and ended with them, with the Mademoiselle's friends. Everything became clear. Now she understands the nature of her relationship with the family, which she never understood when she was in Senegal. Now she understands that it's a relationship of a colonizer and a colonized, an oppressor and an oppressed, a master and a slave. Everything became clear. Why had Madame wanted her to come? Aha. When she was in Senegal, she thought that Madame liked her. She wanted to take her to France, etc. Had a good relationship. And now she understands the reasons why the Madame wanted her to come. To use her, to exploit her. Her generosities, in Senegal, she was generous. The Madame was generous. So her generosities had been premeditated, planned, in order to persuade Diwana to persuade Diwana to come to France. Madame no longer took care of her children. She kissed them every morning. That was all. She would kiss the children and that's it, nothing else. And where was La Belle France? The beautiful France, France of freedom and liberty. Where is it? The France that I wanted to come to. The dream. Where was it? Disappeared. Non-existent. Okay, we have 10 minutes. I will send you tomorrow's link later on today. These questions kept repeating themselves. I am cook. Look how many things she does. I am cook, nurse, maid, chambermaid. I do all the washing and ironing. And for a mere 3,000 francs a month, she starts raising questions. And this is the beginning of the rebellion, the beginning of a new consciousness, the beginning of a new consciousness, the beginning of a rebellion. I do housework for 6 people. What am I doing here? Aha, that's a very serious question. That's a very serious question in which she questions her reality. And that's how revolutions start. People don't just out of the blue start a revolution. They raise questions. And then you try to find answers for those questions. And here she's asking about her. It's like us. It's like us. You are born to a Palestinian family, refugees here in Gaza. Refugee or not here, you are in Gaza, which means you are under occupation. And then you start seeing that your life is not like the life of other people outside Palestine. So there is something wrong. And then you start asking why? Because there is occupation, because there is racism, there is apartheid. That's the first thing. You become conscious. You raise critical questions. Critical questions. We call that the beginning of what? What do we call it? Critical consciousness. Critical consciousness. Until you act, until you decide to act and do something. So from questioning, meaning from theory into practice. From theory into practice. And that is a movement from critical consciousness to revolutionary consciousness. Clear? Am I saying that she's having now a revelation? I'm not saying this. I'm saying she's beginning to question her reality. And this is the beginning of the rise of a new critical consciousness. Race and class consciousness. Class consciousness. Clear? I hope that you are listening and that you are following what I'm talking about. This is extremely important. Diwana gave way to her memories. All right, she started going back to Senegal. Memories. She compared her native bush to the dead shrubs around her. Wonderful, wonderful trees in Senegal compared to those shrubs surrounding her in Antibes. How different from the forest of her home in Casamance. She's comparing now Senegal, home, with France, Antibes. The memory of her village. The memory of her village, of the community life. There's no community life in France. There's no community life in France. Too individualistic. Whereas in this culture, community. You remember when they wanted to say goodbye to her, farewell, they even followed her to the port, if you remember. Everybody wanted to say goodbye to her. Here, nobody's asking about her. Nobody. The memory of her village, of the community life, cut her off from the others even more. So when she started remembering her previous life in Senegal, her village, her community life, the bushes, etc., that made her more estranged, more alienated. Alienation, estrangement. So you become more alienated from your surroundings. You feel alienation here. You remember in the land of sad oranges as well. Alienation means not feeling familiar with your surroundings. It's a completely strange environment. And she cannot get used to it. All right. And then when she remembers her family, community life, the jungle, the bush, the trees, so she wants to go back. All right. This is not here in France. This is not my environment. And therefore I feel like a stranger. She bit her lip, when you remember and you feel sad or rather angry. When you rebel against something, you become angry. Of course, that's natural. So she started biting her lip. So she bit her lip. Sorry to have come. Aha, that's the conclusion. So she regrets coming to France. Sorry to have come. And on this film of the past, notice it's like a film, the memories, film of the past in Senegal, the past in Africa, family, community, etc. And on this film of the past, 1,000 other details were projected. Wow. Don't forget the writer is a director also. He's a movie director. This is also a film, by the way, directed by the writer, Ousmane Sembene. Ousmane Sembene. So he made this into a movie. So notice this, look, the memories. When you watch the movie, you will understand. And this film of the past, 1,000 other details were projected. As she returned to these surroundings, which surroundings? French, in France. French surroundings in France, in Antibes. So coming back to her reality now, not the past, the present, now, where she was doubly an outsider. Her feelings hardened. She hated it. And her feelings hardened. She thought often of Tiv Korea. Sorry. She thought often of Tiv Korea. You remember? I told you that time when we met Tiv Korea, when we encountered him, and I told you I want you to remember this man, what he's saying now, and later how he will be remembered. And this is the time when she starts remembering Tiv Korea. She thought often of Tiv Korea. His predictions had come cruelly true. What he predicted, it had come cruelly true, which is sad actually, which is very sad, which is very, very sad. So he predicted that's what would happen to her, because he knows the nature of the relationship between the oppressor and the oppressed, the colonizer and the colonized. And he told her more than once, but she didn't want to listen. She never wanted to listen. She would have liked to write to him, but couldn't. So I want you to think, why would she have liked to write to him? What would she have written to Tiv Korea? To tell him what? Think about it. So tomorrow, inshallah, you will tell me. If we have some time, you can tell me. She would have liked to write to him, but couldn't. Since arriving in France, she had had only 2 letters, 3 months